Welcome back around to theCUBE. I'm John Furrier, host with Dave Vellante, my co-host. We're here at Mobile World Congress, MWC 2026, our 5th year. We got IBM and Red Hat here to break down the AI convergence, the AI acceleration in the telco. We got Eoin Coughlan, Global CTO, Industry Lead TME at IBM. Fran Heeran, Vice President Global Telecommunications at Red Hat. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on theCUBE, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great to be here, thank you.
You guys kind of own the whole technology stack, and with Red Hat, you're starting to see the cloud native come together with Telecom, and the AI workloads are running in hybrid. Okay, so looking good there. Now they got the networks, they got the edge. What's your philosophy right now of where they are at? Do they see the opportunity? Is it moving faster? Thoughts?
I think when I look at the edge opportunity, I think the telcos are perfectly positioned. I think they have the assets, they have the buildings, the infrastructure, they have the network, and in those locations right across the country where people might want to run these more private AI workloads that are associated with their own enterprise. And I think that gives the telcos a great advantage to take that on. And when we look at their 5G networks, and we look at where they have their CUs based, etc., they tend to be dotted all around the country, so they have the infrastructure, they have the technology capability, they just need to grasp the opportunities with the enterprises that need this.
Eoin, you bring up a good point, like the telecom we've been following over multiple decades, they've always been great at technology. They got the trillions of build out, but now that they start to talk about monetization, networking and data is what's key at the edge in these telecoms. With the converged edge and AI factories coming soon, high performance AI workloads, they got to be tied in a distributed manner. That's distributed computing.
Well, I think as a platform company, what we're seeing, and if you look at AI at the very highest level, we're seeing, I think the vast majority of use cases is in around cost saving, optimization. So internal use, how do I use AI to optimize my network, my operations? We're now starting to see the conversations about how do I monetize AI. So when I've built the infrastructure, and to your point, they do have this very unique piece of real estate, which is your radio network, the far edge. Putting AI in there as part of AI RAN, so AI for radio, is key. Our mission in Red Hat, obviously, is to make that as efficient as possible with the platform.
France, quickly define far edge, because you mentioned wireless. Define far edge, I think that's important to
It's a little subjective.
So it's wireless, it's a spectrum, unlicensed, licensed spectrum, is that what?
No, far edge is more how close to the device can you get, to the consumer. So you've got in a typical telco, you've got your main data centers where you put your core network, your IT systems. And then as you go out towards sort of the edge of the network, the radio, I suppose, is the definition of near far edge, if that's the right term to use?
Yeah. Far edge interface.
For some people, far edge is actually in the premises of the enterprise. Okay. But for telcos, it really is out on the radio network. How do I make that efficient to begin with? And then once I've done that, with things like AI for radio, can I then monetize it by leasing the infrastructure, leasing the compute power that I've got for third-party use?
And there's also the tiny edge at the far edge, right? Where
the device.
Where
space.
I presume you
space
can run.
is an edge too.
You can run Linux out at the tiny edge.
It's subjective as to how far
I bring it up because this is the modern telecom architecture. You have to, it's end to end.
Yeah.
This seems to be the new data-centric architecture, not just voice data.
Absolutely, yeah. But it also comes, if you look at putting those workloads in those areas, this is where security comes into the picture in a big way, right? So you have to plan all of these AI factories or AI workload capabilities in a secure manner right across the network in order to protect it for your enterprise.
The telcos have always done great at connectivity. I think 2 years ago at this event, we heard, I think it was the CEO of Orange called out Netflix, and Netflix should pay up, and Netflix retorted with, no, we're bringing all this wonderful value to you, et cetera, et cetera. But my point is that the over-the-top vendors, they got all the monetization. With 5G, the conversation was, no, we have to be able to monetize 5G. That really didn't happen. So where are the monetization opportunities for the telcos today? Fran, you talked about cost savings. Sure, that's a form of monetization. But describe that. Is that the physical AI? I mean, obviously autonomous vehicles, there needs to be some kind of connections. You've got satellites now coming in as a threat. Where do you guys see the telcos not missing this great opportunity that they've historically missed?
I think if you look at the enterprise business that they they have a great opportunity to expand that right now. Right, so today if you look at a lot of telcos are providing MSP services where they're providing not just connectivity but security and other capabilities. With AI, there's a lot of companies, if you look at the SME market, which is about 90% of all business.
You would think they would own that, right?
They should own that. They should be their CIO office. They should provide the AI factory, and they should give them the tools to govern, to build their own capabilities, to bring in their own models. And that's what we're talking to customers about right now, is how does the telco manage that for all of the enterprise?
I think that's the most important conversation. Can you share your view of the architecture to make that happen? Because that really is what we're hearing, is what everyone's talking about. How do I make that happen?
I think this is where you cross in. So you mentioned sovereignty before we went on air. And there was an announcement last week which kind of went unnoticed, but 5 of the big European telcos announced a federated edge agreement, where they're essentially federating their own edge real estate and technology. The sovereignty debate in Europe, I think, is an interesting one, because the question you have to ask is, what does a telco have that is unique or differentiated that will make it attractive for the enterprise and not over the top? Sovereignty, given the focus on this, AI, how do I retain my data within national boundaries? Telcos they've been building sovereign networks for years. Like a telco network is by definition largely sovereign. I think they're really well positioned to offer, that's where you're seeing the gigafactories, the AI factories, they're seeing an opportunity to do something that nobody else can do right now, which is offer these super sovereign, secure, telco-grade clouds, both in kind of mainstream data centers, but also out on the edge as well.
So you're saying, Fran, that they already had done the sovereign right for the right reasons.
A
cloud,
core network is sovereign
hybrid.
by definition, yeah.
If you add intelligence with AI factories, smaller footprints, could be the size of a small little box, GPU, compute memory.
With the guarantees of data integrity, of security, of properly following regulations, which is something, again, that telcos are very good at doing.
What do you see as the outcome of that? Because I would imagine there'd be things we would never see before, use cases.
In terms of what happens when you do
this? What happens
this?
if you put intelligence in a federated, sovereign, already pre-baked?
So this is the question, and when people talk about edge, this is the famous, why do I need the edge and AI and the edge? And I think we're still, we have to weed through all the nonsense use cases and get to the real ones. The new generation of wearable devices is an interesting one, right? So they're starting to demand lower and lower latency, which is where the telco edge becomes really important. So I know there's, at the show here, we have the wearable glasses, the AR, VR devices. When they get enabled on the mobile network, they will require extreme low latency. So putting the workload that they rely on as close to the device as possible, that's something a telco can offer. That is becoming a practical use case.
How does that affect their overall architecture? We've got decades of CapEx that have been spent and built up for the sort of pre-AI era. AI comes along, it changes everything, the network changes, obviously the compute, everything. How are telcos balancing that existing infrastructure, and what do they have to change, and then how do you guys help?
Want me to start and you go?
Sure.
It's become, and it's been going on for a couple of years, it's become where before telcos would put all their workloads in a couple of locations, right? You had 2 main data centers usually. It's become much more distributed now, much more disaggregated. That's one of the fundamental things you're seeing happening on the network. And it's very much about how do I put the right application on the right infrastructure in the right location. So having that choice of, okay, my app needs to be using this infrastructure but located in this location close to the device. So it's becoming about choice and a much more distributed, disaggregated network design. Owen?
And I think once you have that design in place, now you need to look at how you're going to manage all of this. So we used to think about, I'm going to put AI in and AI is going to solve this. But what does that mean, right? So you break that down. If you want to be cost conscious, which everybody has to be, then you're going to have a number of different types of models that you're going to use. So you're going to use large language models. Yeah. You're going to want small language models, which are specifically trained on your enterprise data. And you're going to use some frontier models. So now you've got agents using these models, but who's orchestrating all of those agents, right? So you need to orchestrate across all of these agents. And we talked about sovereignty. Yeah. So what we're releasing this year is our Sovereign Core, and that's to help operators and other industries to deliver a core of software capability which guarantees the security, guarantees the governance, and allows demonstrable control of that AI.
This is really important because those centralized networks that you described, Fran, have been highly reliable, right? As you now disaggregate, can you achieve that same level of reliability, governance, security, et cetera? I mean, you're opening up Pandora's box, are you not?
Well, this is where the latency that Fran was talking about as well comes into play, because when you have these language models that you're using as part of the agents, and the agents are speaking to other agents and using tools, the latency therefore becomes a really big challenge. And that's why we're now moving from building models and capability for business outcomes to evaluating those models for accuracy but also performance. And that's where technologies like VLLM, Red Hat are pushing, is really powerful.
You guys are enabling the business model, because what you're talking about is a modern hybrid architecture in distributed computing. Okay, check. But legacy models of telecom has been selling connectivity.
Yeah.
Now they're moving to managed service, managed platform edge. They would do average revenue per circuit. Now they're doing average revenue per service. So you start, when you get agents, you have a services model, not so much like, are they there? How would you rank the progress of the mindset of the shift on the business side?
That's a really important question. And I think when you look at what's coming down the road, right, 6G is not quite here yet, but it will be, right? It'll be the talking point next year, I'm sure. I think the lesson we all learned from 5G was we've maxed out the consumer monetization. The only 5G use case that emerged on consumers was fixed wireless access, where you can put broadband where you haven't got fixed infrastructure. On 6G, if you look at how the telco technology is evolving, it's much more about devices and machines. So in addition to consumers, the future networks are going to be more about these wearable devices, machine drones, for example, as part of the specification. So you're seeing a shift, and I think that's where the telcos will begin to focus on the B2B play. It's going to be, use my network as a network of choice for devices, not phones, they'll be there anyway. So it's going to require a new mindset shift, but we are seeing telcos more and more realizing this is coming and focusing more on the B2B side. So you're saying if
you put 6G radios everywhere, because they have limitations, but say millimeter wave could solve that problem.
It's a denser network,
yeah.
You've got more points of presence, but also you've got the latency, you've got the speed.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a mix of consumer and device.
So the far edge enablement, that's a transceiver to a far edge access.
It's a unique piece of real estate for a telco as well. That's where they could monetize.
Right, I mean, that is a huge opportunity. I guess the competitive threat to that is what? The satellite networks is the sort of the new thing, but really they don't have at least the scale and for quite some time,
or the regulatory, right? I think that's going to be some time.
Yeah, so that seems like this one, finally the telcos are going to be able to,
have an opportunity
to knock it down, right?
Really first, they better not miss this one.
Exactly, yeah.
You agree?
I agree.
Opportunity, don't blow it.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people will be talking about that this year, because it is, I mean, they're, like we were just talking about, perfect scenario where they're used to a heavy regulatory environment.
Yeah.
They have good relations with the governments. You could see governments needing to have sovereign applications for the government, the healthcare, et cetera, and all of that moving on to sovereign platforms.
I would just say, based on your conversation, guys, is that to me the observation is that the road is meeting them where they are. Yeah. Cloud native is booming. The demand on AI, the Metas, the Googles, and the hyperscalers are coming in.
Sovereignty.
So they don't really, I mean, they just kind of they got a footprint.
Yeah.
They just got to leverage some of the tweaks.
I mean, the previous wave was how good are you at developing content and distributing that to users and creating an experience. I mean, that was not the telco sweet spot. Now we're talking about connectivity, trust, managing distributed networks. I mean, this is their wheelhouse.
And the way they're having to build their networks is now a monetizable opportunity, because it's a changed architecture. They've got this kind of unique piece of compute that they can offer, an infrastructure. So yeah.
All right, we've got a minute left. Give a quick plug for what you guys are doing at MWC this year. What's the top conversation? What are the biggest issues people should pay attention to that you're working on?
So for us in Red Hat, and then I'll hand over to Eoin, I think 3 main things. One is common infrastructure platforms for telcos. So we're getting away from building silos. As you go from data center to far edge, having a common platform, that's where Red Hat plays very strongly. AI is obviously huge. And AI, not just in a monetizable opportunity, but also how you build the networks and design it, and then sovereignty.
Oh, and what's your focus?
So our focus is on moving to the next stage of value, trust and governance, which brings in sovereign core, which is a main focus of ours. Quantum computing, where are we in the development towards quantum computing? how do we get those use cases? So we're showcasing some of that at our booth.
Okay.
And then of course post-quantum cryptography is the challenge that everybody's facing. And then we're also looking right across the autonomous network space, because here you're going to be building a lot of different agents with a lot of different LLMs and SLMs, etc. So you're going to have a lot of technology that you need to manage, so we're going to show how to do that.
Well, I got you here, since you're an expert, and we have our Mixture of Experts series, might as well ask you the quantum question. I'm hosting a Chatham House Rule panel on, the topic is quantum wireless, quantum RF. What does that mean? How does quantum change the game in telecom?
Well, I think what you're looking there is, quantum introduces the capability of doing computations of a type of mathematics which standard computers and supercomputers struggle with. So we often talk about the different states when we're talking about material science, but when you look at RF, the number of possibilities are almost infinite, and you're looking across three-dimensional space and all of the things that affect it. So when you're looking at RF planning and things like that, quantum computing can greatly speed up or even make possible the types of computation.
So you think it's a game changer?
Yeah, it's the type of computation.
Possibilities are endless, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's the same when you look at network optimization, network planning, that and RF coming into that, that's all part of that kind of endless set of computations that standard computers will struggle with, and quantum computers should be the right tool.
Well, thanks for sharing. That's going to be our agenda for next year, MWC. A little teaser, thanks for sharing that.
Thanks, Owen.
Fran, thanks for coming on.
Guys. Appreciate it.
I'm John Furrier, Dave Vellante, breaking down MWC26. A little teaser with quantum in the future, of course. The platforms are moving to the edge. This is where the action is. This is where the value will be created and extracted, both technically and on the business side. More coverage from theCUBE after this short break.